What if the one man she swore she would never trust was the only one who stepped into the flames to save her life? Dust moved in slow circles behind Ashcliffe, drifting through dead grass that had given up long before Willa Monroe reached the town. 5 dry years had split the land and hardened the people who lived on it. Willa had seen every kind of cowboy the West could shape. Men who tipped their hats with sweet smiles during the day and turned mean when the sun dropped. Ranchers with empty eyes and cheap promises. Cowhands who treated every girl like something they could claim. By 19, she had learned to keep a knife in her boot and her heart behind a locked door. She never cried when the bank took her family ranch. She never flinched when neighbors whispered that she would not survive on her own. She packed a pistol, her mother's broken locket, and the last of her courage. Then she rode west alone until her money ran thin and a train carried her as far as Ashcliffe. Ashcliffe looked dead by daylight, but it came alive at night with guitar music and men who tried too hard to feel important. Willa avoided the saloon for her first month. She scrubbed rooms at the old Hayes Hotel and slept in the cellar beside sacks of rice. She kept to herself. She kept her voice small. She kept her fears smaller. It worked until she saw a faded wanted poster outside the general store. Eli Cannon Troll. Reward $500. Horse theft. Arson. Murder. The name hit her like a blow. Eli had worked for her father 8 years ago. Back then he was kind, quiet, and fast with a drawl. The night he ran from the Monroe Ranch after a bar fight left 2 men dead, her father had sworn he was innocent. That was the last she heard of him. Seeing his face again made her heart twist. She tore the poster down, hid it under her cot, and stared at it every night. She didn't know if she felt anger or something else, but one evening she walked straight into the Copper Spoon Saloon and took a seat in the corner. Smoke hung thick inside. Piano notes bent into the noise of shouting and broken laughter. She watched the card table near the fireplace. 5 dusty men sat there. One had a scar down his jaw. Older now, leaner. Eyes hollowed out by years she couldn't imagine. Eli Cannon Troll. He never saw her, but she watched him. The way he moved. The way he never took more money than the table offered. The way he never smiled, not even once. That night she dreamed of her father bleeding in the barn, calling for someone who never came. Days moved slow after that. Willa followed Eli from a distance. He worked odd jobs, slept over the smithy, and kept to himself. Men left him alone. He carried a quiet that warned them off. One evening, when she stepped outside the hotel, he passed by with a feed sack on his shoulder. Their eyes met. "You looking at something?" he asked. "You Eli Cannon Troll," she said. "Depends. You worked the Monroe Ranch east of Fincher Plains." He looked at her long enough to recognize her. "You were the girl with the red dog." Her name was Dusty. He nodded once and walked on. She did the same. The next morning she found a tin of jerky on the back step. The day after, a repaired pair of fencing gloves. He never asked for thanks. He never stayed long. But something shifted between them, light as dust on wind, and she felt it every time he walked away. Then came the night. Everything burned. The fire started in the jail. The sheriff locked up the wrong boy, and someone's uncle tried to free him with flame. Wind caught the fire fast. Screams carried through the boards of the hotel cellar where Willa slept. She ran outside barefoot. The street glowed orange, alive with panic. People threw water, shouted names, fired guns into the sky. Willa started for the alley to escape the flames. She could have kept running. No one would have blamed her. But then she heard it. A woman screaming. A baby crying upstairs in room 12. Mrs. Calder's child. Willa hesitated for only one breath. Then she sprinted into the burning hotel. Smoke clawed her throat. Heat pressed against her skin. She pushed through the hallway until she reached the open door. The baby lay inside, crying loud as a storm. She lifted the child. Her knees buckled. The ceiling groaned. Something cracked above her. She heard her name, not from memory. From right behind her. Then strong hands gripped her, pulled her through the smoke, pulled her out of the fire. When she opened her eyes, she lay on the street, coughing ash. The baby cried nearby, alive. Eli knelt over her, his sleeve burned off, soot streaked across his face. "You're a fool," he said, though his voice shook. "I thought you were one of the bad ones," she whispered. He helped her sit up. "Guess you ain't the only one people get wrong." For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Ashcliffe woke slow the next morning, its heart half burned and its people half broken. No one thanked her. No one thanked him. In the West, survival never earned applause. Willa wrapped a bandage around her wrist on the hotel steps. Eli placed a tin of black coffee beside her and sat down. "You ain't made for dying," he said. "Neither are you." They sat in silence while the town tried to rebuild itself. When Hayes told her the hotel had no more work, she packed what little she owned. She didn't know where she would go. Eli found her by the watering trough. "There's a cattle drive heading north," he said. "They need hands. I can vouch for you." "You vouching for me?" she asked. He looked at her, steady as stone. "Vouching for myself." Dust drifted between them. Something inside her shifted. "All right," she said, and together they left Ashcliffe behind. The road north felt like a different world from the dying streets of Ashcliffe. The land stretched wide and harsh, a mix of gray plains and rust-colored dust that stung the skin. Coyotes cried from the ridges at night. During the day, the sun hammered down until Willa's bones felt brittle. Eli rode quiet beside her, humming low when he thought she couldn't hear. She never asked the name of the tune. He never offered it. 2 days later, they met the herd. Hundreds of longhorn cattle pushed across the plain like a river of horns and muscle. Dust rose around them in thick clouds. The trail boss, a big man named Dobbs with a broken nose and a voice that cracked like dry wood, eyed Willa first. "You're small," he said. "Small don't slow down someone good with a rope," Willa answered. Dobbs laughed loud, tossed her a lariat, and pointed at a calf streaking past. "Prove it." She did, clean and quick. The calf went down, dust flying. The look on Dobbs' face was enough. He spat into the dirt and nodded. "All right. You ride." Willa joined the drive, and that night she circled the herd under a sliver of moon. Eli kept a steady pace a few lengths away. Coyotes yapped at the sky. The cattle shifted like restless thunder. Close to midnight, a shot cracked across the plain. Willa snapped her reins tight. She spotted a shadow moving low near the herd. Before she could lift her pistol, Eli was already there. He knocked the rustler down with one swing of his fist. Another shot fired, but it went wide. Willa rode in fast, her heart pounding. The rustler pulled a knife. Eli fired once. The man dropped where he stood. Silence fell, heavy and dark. The other drovers came racing in. Dobbs cursed and looked at the body. "Buzzards can have him," he muttered. Willa's hands shook long after they rode back to camp, but when the sun came up, she saddled her horse and rode again. She didn't stop. Days blurred. Dust storms stripped the land raw. One night, lightning tore open the sky and set the herd running in blind panic. The stampede thundered across the plain. Willa rode until her legs burned, waving her hat, shouting until her voice cracked. Eli stayed beside her, steady as a wall. When the cattle finally slowed, he grabbed her shoulder. "You got nothing to prove," he said. She jerked away. "I'm not proving it to you." His mouth twitched, quiet and almost soft. "No, you're proving it to yourself." The drive pushed on. Willa learned the sky like a map, learned the moods of the cattle, learned how to shoot from the saddle without blinking. She learned Eli walked with a limp on cold mornings. She learned he spoke Spanish to horses, gentle and low. She learned he carried a letter that he never opened, worn to the point the paper might fall apart. Sometimes she wondered what it said. She never asked. The closer they got to the Platte, the harder the men around them got. Fights broke out for nothing. A stolen biscuit, a careless bump. Willa kept her distance, but trouble still found her. One night Cal Anders cornered her near the remuda. His breath smelled like old whiskey. His hand grabbed her arm. She fought, kicking, biting, but he only laughed. "No law out here," he growled. A harsh click cut through the dark. Eli stood a few feet away, revolver raised, eyes cold. "Let her go," he said. Cal sneered. "You gonna shoot me over her?" Eli didn't blink. "Last time I'm asking." Anders let go. "You're dead, Cannon Troll." "Maybe," Eli said. Willa stood shaking with fury and shame. She waited for Eli to say something, anything, but he just walked beside her back to the fire. They didn't speak of it after. They didn't need to. Something between them had changed again. The Platte River shimmered under the morning sun like a knife's edge. The drive was nearly done. Steam rose from the cattle as they drank. Men murmured to each other, tired and worn thin. Willa watched the water and saw her own reflection break apart with every ripple. She had come far from who she used to be. That night, Eli sat beside her by the fire. He held the letter in his hand. "You ever wonder what makes a man run?" he asked. "No," she said. "I wonder what makes him stop." He studied her then, something heavy in his eyes. "It's from a woman back east," he said. "One I never married. She hoped I was dead. Said if I ever came back, she'd put a bullet in me." Willa didn't look away. "Did you deserve it?" Quote. "I did." She didn't flinch. She folded the letter and gave it back to him. "Why haven't you gone to see her?" He stared into the fire. "I used to think dying was easier. Now I don't know what easy looks like." He stayed beside her until the stars moved west. Neither spoke, neither slept. The next morning, thunder rolled across the plain, but it wasn't from the sky. Riders approached fast, 10 of them, dust rising behind their horses like a storm. At the front was a tall woman with a dark braid and a silver ring tied in it. She raised her hand and stopped just short of the herd. "I'm here for Eli Cannon Troll," she said. Every head turned. Eli stepped forward. "Ruth." "You should have stayed dead," she said. "I tried." Willa's heart tightened. Ruth lifted her chin. "Tell her what you did." Eli looked at the ground. "I killed her brother." "No," Ruth snapped. "You murdered him in his sleep." The camp fell silent. Willa felt her breath freeze in her chest. "Why?" she asked quietly. Eli met her eyes. "Because he started the fire that killed your father." Everything inside her cracked open. "You let me think you just ran." "I did. And now? Now I don't want to die without you knowing the truth." The air went still. Ruth raised her rifle, ready to end it. Willa stepped in front of Eli. "No," she said. "You want justice?" Ruth growled. "Let me give it to you." "I want truth," Willa said, "and I want to choose what to do with it." She pulled her knife and held it out hilt first. "This was for the next man who lied to me." Eli didn't move. She turned to Ruth. "He saved me in the fire. He's mine to face." Ruth stared long and hard. Then she nodded once. "We ride at dawn," she said, and they were gone. As silence settled, Eli sat by the fire, shoulders low, eyes tired. "You should have told me from the start," Willa said. "I thought it would drive you off." "You were right." He swallowed. "You still leaving?" "Not yet." He let out a slow breath. The night fell heavy around them. Dawn broke cold and thin across the edge of the plains. Frost clung to the grass, and the sky turned pale, like the world was holding its breath. Willa and Eli rode in silence, their horses kicking up small clouds of steam with every step. Neither spoke about what waited for them. Some truths were too heavy to carry in words. Greenridge wasn't a town, just a handful of buildings leaning against the wind. An old chapel stood at the center, roof half caved in, bell long dead. Ruth waited in front of it, wrapped in a long duster, her rifle slung across her back. No men with her this time, just cold air and her steady eyes. Eli dismounted first. "You still want it," he said. Ruth didn't smile. You think this is want? He held out his revolver. You can end it. I won't stop you. She stared at the gun like it was poison. No, that's too easy. She pulled out a scratched coin and tossed it into the snow. Face, you walk free. Tails, I take your shooting hand. Eli didn't flinch. You trust fate now? No, Ruth said, but I trust myself to honor what happens. She flipped it. The coin spun high, flashing silver in the cold light. It hit the ground, rolled, and landed half buried in the snow. No face, no tail, just an edge. They stared at it. Willa stepped forward. She picked up the coin and held it out. The design was almost gone, too worn to show a choice. No clear answer, she said. Nope, Ruth replied. Then she turned. Just turned and walked away into the trees without another word. The wind blew snow across her tracks. Eli stood still as stone. For the first time since she met him, he looked lost. They slept in the abandoned chapel that night. Snow drifted through the broken roof and settled on the worn floorboards. The air felt like a grave. You think that was mercy? Eli asked. Willa stared at the ceiling. No, it was surrender. To what? He asked quietly. To time, she said. To what she became. To what you are now. He looked at her. His eyes held fear, regret, and something she hadn't seen before. Hope. And what am I? He asked. She closed her eyes. A man who never stopped running from fire. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They rode back part of the way together. Then Willa veered east alone. She needed air. She needed space. She needed distance to understand her own heartbeat again. She did not cry when Eli faded behind her. She did not look back. In Fremont, she found work at the telegraph office. It was quiet, clean, predictable. She memorized the tapping of wires and learned the stories of strangers one short message at a time. Days passed, then weeks. Eli did not return. She tried not to notice. One frozen night, a stranger limped into the office, bleeding from his side. You, Willa Monroe? He asked. She nodded. He handed her a small oilskin bundle. Inside was Eli's revolver. He said to give you that if he didn't come back, the man said. Willa's breath caught. Where is he? Wyoming Territory. Went after one of the men who lit that barn fire. Didn't say more. She didn't ask again. She didn't need to. She knew where she had to go. 2 weeks later, she bought a horse, packed her knife, packed Eli's revolver, and rode west. Not out of forgiveness. Not out of love, but because some debts don't belong to the grave. Some fires don't stop burning until someone faces them head on. Wyoming met her with snow, wind, and silence. It took weeks to follow Eli's trail. She spoke to ranch hands, saloon girls, and men who didn't like to talk. Bit by bit, she found his path. First was Deeks, old, sick, and yellowed like spoiled corn. She found him hunched in a lonely cabin, too weak to hold the gun she set on his table. I never meant for your father to die, he whispered. You let Eli carry it, she said. He started crying long after she left. Tolliver was next. Bigger land, bigger lies, married twice. Buried twice. A man who had built a life out of ashes that weren't his. You think shooting me fixes this? He asked. Willa didn't shoot him. She shot at the ground by his boots. Then she shot near his dog. Fear settled into him like frost. She walked away, leaving the door open. 2 days later, she found Eli. He lay inside a small cabin north of Snake Fork, half conscious, fever burning through him. The wound on his side was infected, his skin pale, his breaths thin. You didn't have to come, he whispered. You knew I would, she said. She boiled snow for water, cleaned his wound, held his head steady when he shook. He was too weak to argue. By the 3rd day, the fever broke and he looked at her like he could finally see something again. You get them? He asked. No, she said, but they know I was there. He nodded once. That's enough. She packed her things. "I'm riding east," she said. "Farm work, decent pay. You want me to follow?" She held his gaze. "I want you to try." She rode out at sunrise without turning back. She didn't need to. She knew he watched her until she disappeared. Months passed in Kansas. She worked a quiet cattle station near Abilene. Flat land, honest sky, steady days. She kept Eli's revolver wrapped in cloth inside her trunk. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. One evening, a rider came up the trail. Tired horse. Slow gait. A limp in his step. He didn't speak at first. Just took off his hat and waited. Willa stood across from him, hands at her sides. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I didn't either," Eli answered. She looked at him. Not at the man he had been. Not at the man wanted on posters. At the man who stepped into fire for her. The man who told the truth even when it gutted him. The man who kept trying when it would have been easier to disappear. "I'm not yours," she said. "I know," he answered. "But I'll ride with you," she said softly. "Even if the fire comes again." Quote. Eli smiled, a small, tired smile, like the sun breaking through smoke. "If it does," Willa said, "let it try me." They stood together under the wide Kansas sky, two people burnt by the past, but still standing, still choosing, still fighting for something worth holding. And for the first time, she didn't feel like running.